Afrofuturism plays that role because where I want to create a tool to help navigate us. I'm looking at my own life and what others around me. I'm like, how can I help?
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, now I can create something to help guide us and like help us find our way. Especially being like active creators of our own future. So instead of allowing the world to guide you and say like, this is who you are and who you should be, it's like taking that power back and saying like, no, this is what the future is going to look like for us.
Welcome back once again to the I Feel You podcast. We are here with another episode of season 4. On this episode, we have a special guest. His name is Mark Anthony Wilson Jr. He is a self-taught artist whose practice marries the unveiling of African American heritage with Afrofuturism through paintings and sculptures. Inspired by the Indigenous Totem Poles in Washington, he developed an identity in masquerade. Encouraged by the relationship between Black and Indigenous cultures, he uses an assortment of influential materials, creating a dystopian nature. Mark's work has been exhibited in multiple group exhibitions and public installations across the United States. On this episode, we elaborate on the concept of Afrofuturism. We talk about his career as a therapist and how it relates to his art. And we also talk about his faith and how that allows him to overextend. So thank you for watching this episode. We really do appreciate it. If you don't mind subscribing, that'd be really nice. And also liking the video when you get to the point that you feel like you've gotten something from this. We don't want to ask you to like a video that you haven't learned anything from or that you haven't gotten anything from for your daily life. So please, when you feel that moment, because you'll definitely feel it, when you feel that moment of gratitude and excitement that you are watching a video like this, please give us a like. And yeah, that means a lot. We appreciate it. And also, it means a lot to share and give us your thoughts on how you felt the episode went. And with all that, enjoy the episode. What's up, Mark? How you doing, man?
I'm doing great. I'm happy to be here. I'm in good health and I'm surrounded by like amazing energy, the art on the wall.
Yeah, true.
The space is incredible.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
No, I love this is like the art room of the house. So all of this is like art made by friends or artists that we know. And also Christine, who was the other person. You met Christine, right? At Manifest?
At the event.
Or was it Fear?
No, it was Manifest.
Manifest, right?
Yes.
Oh, God, they're so similar in my head. But yeah, Manifest. But yeah, she does a lot of this stuff. So no, I appreciate it. It's a cool vibe. Thank you for being on the show. Appreciate it. You already talked a little bit about it, but like, how do you really feel? You feel good? Like for real?
I feel good for real.
That's good.
Yeah, and to be working with all that you do on Project Phil and like all the spaces that you fill with different artists, like mediums, it's an honor to be here.
I appreciate that. I really do. Did we meet you for Manifest? Is that when we first came into contact with you? How did that happen?
Yes. JJ connected me to somebody. Yeah. I can't remember. It was all a blur. Because just coming in and not knowing anyone, I had to I'm like taking it all in. And then I remember when y'all started performing, I saw you performing.
Oh, shit.
And I was like, okay, y'all were really getting down. And I was like, oh, this energy, they hard. Yeah.
I appreciate it. Yeah, it's a different energy when we're performing and stuff like that, for sure. Yeah. But no, I appreciate that. No, your art was incredible, man. Like,
thank you.
Probably my favorite that we had there that night. There's so many incredible artists there, but like I think the way it just came out of the space, like something about physical art when it's built in that way, it just like there's an attraction to it that's different than a lot of things. And don't get me wrong, everybody was like, honestly, if I looked at them all side by side, it probably would have a hard time picking what was actually my favorite. But I will say that like your art is incredible. This is the first time that I'm meeting you. First time we're actually having like a full-on conversation, like a sit-down thing. So I want to get to know a little bit more about your past. I know a bit of it. Are you still a therapist, or you're not doing that anymore?
Yes. So I'm
kind of wild.
Yeah, I'm still a therapist. I have a full-time job.
Great.
I'm actually in school too for that. I'm sure like being an artist, like your art, it doesn't like pay for my life. It doesn't fund everything. So yeah, and
unfortunately.
Yeah. But I love what I do. I'm committed to it just as much as art. So I find peace in that.
Nice. That's good. And when did you start doing therapy? Like why was therapy the thing, and when did you start?
Yeah, I started as a senior in college. I was looking for an internship. Autism center was like right down the street. And once I got into the environment, I saw how easy it was for me. Certain people are not comfortable around certain like groups, different populations of people. Yeah. But for me, it was just like, like your everyday.
That's pretty interesting. Why? So like, was it purely just because like that was the first thing you saw, or was there always a calling to like therapy? And
no, there was no calling. I went to school for psych, and it was like when I played football, you have an extra year, and it's like I could have took just like the easy classes and skated by, or I could have went for an internship and get my master's degree. Oh, okay. And so I wanted to challenge myself, and that's where I felt like my calling was. In psychology, if you want to like specify like where to go. Yeah.
And you said you're still in school doing that?
Yeah. So moving to New York, they have certain classes and courses you got to take for like the New York State exam, which I'm going to be sitting for soon. And so that's what I'm going through now.
Nice. Well, congrats. That's pretty cool.
Thank you.
There are very few artists that are still doing school and art at the same time. So yeah, I'm sure that's challenging.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, how do you balance all of that with your art and doing school and stuff?
I mean, I honestly don't. It's just like one of those things where whatever is up next, that's what's gonna get done. Sleep and whatever comes after that. But yeah, there's no true balance. It's like what's on the menu.
If sleep is next, then I'll go to sleep. But if not, then it is what it is.
No,
Do you what's more full time for you? Is it school, work, or art?
I would say work.
And you as a therapist, right?
So I was working 6 days a week. Now this year was my goal to cut it down to just like Monday through Friday.
Yeah.
But yeah.
That's pretty wild, man. You got a lot going on, huh?
Yeah, it's New York. True, to keep up.
Fair. Yeah.
Pay bills. You want a certain lifestyle. You want to be able to hang out.
Yeah.
So you gotta go to work.
Yeah, you got to do everything to do everything, which is kind of just how it goes. When did you find art? Like, when did you get there?
Interesting story. So I was, it was Christmas time in a church. We had to buy a gift for kids, and I bought this art kit from Walmart. Everybody's probably seen that same kit. Yeah. $20. I brought it home, and I actually opened it before I could gift it to someone. And when I opened it, it was like, I didn't stop. And so it was like, what is this? And that was like my intro into creating art, or just even being around like art supplies. Yeah.
Did you like, is there anybody else in your family or your friends and stuff that you knew that did art or anything like that?
No. The closest creative I knew was JJ at the time, but he was more into like modeling and fashion. Okay. I think I was just exploring. I had no idea. Like, I didn't even know you could paint on a canvas at that time. Like, I was just painting on sheets, like fabric.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. And literally just like supplies. Like, you just found some material and you're like, this is cool. Like, what the? That's awesome actually. And now you're doing like full on sculptures. Like, that's kind of like. So how long ago was that you found?
That was 2019.
Wow. Okay.
I was out of college. I was living on my own, and I was able to just kind of go wild into my crib and do whatever I wanted to. And it seemed like every year it kind of develops into something new, where I'm just like, because I'm still exploring. I don't really, I don't know everything.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I saw you were selling some pieces recently. Like, it was paintings, right? They were more like it was on canvas, and now everything I see on your Instagram is like these insanely beautiful sculptures that you do with like, materials that you have around. So it's really cool that you go so quickly. I think the exploration is something that a lot of people miss out on. Just because you do one thing really well doesn't mean that you should like stick to it and only do that. You should explore like you're doing now. And some things work and you can kind of like dive into that. And I think somebody else, do you know who Keon is? Have you ever heard Keon? He's an artist out here in New York that we know pretty well. Shout out to Keon. He reminds me of that same vibe where like every time I see him doing like an exhibition or doing an event, he's always doing something different. Like he started with doing poetry and that's what I knew him for. But then he started getting into painting, was super successful in that. And now he's doing like these like excavation things where it's like dinosaur bones and it's like as if he found them and it's
I'm gonna have
wild.
to check that out.
Yeah, it's I'll show you after, but it's really awesome. But it reminds me of the same vibe where it's like I never know what to expect, but when I see it I'm like, damn, like that's crazy. That's pretty cool. But what is your process when you go to explore? Like what happens?
So everything with me, I would say, is like mood and feeling. Yeah. And like my favorite tool to use is my hands. So like it's honestly whatever I can get my hands on and like manipulate it. But what I do, like say if I'm in the studio or if I even go in the studio, it's always based off of like how I feel. If I don't feel it, I won't do anything. Yeah.
That's fair. And it's super fair just because like the way you do art, from what I can tell, is like you work, right? And then you do your art. When you do your art, you want to do whatever you want to do. Like that's totally dope. Like I love that. You have to be able to do that because there's only so many things that you have control over in life. And art is like you have total control over this thing and the way that it looks at the end of the day. And that's a really exciting thing to have in this world of like
amen.
Madness.
So. Like you say, like having to clock in or having to be on time. Like you don't have your way when you go to work. Yeah.
That's super interesting. How does your job as like a therapist, does that ever influence your art in any kind of way? Like what is that connection there?
Yes, all the time. From the expressions of my clients, to the toys or the items that they have in their home. One thing I love about New York is that I work with families from all over the world, and just seeing their cousins come over, aunts, and the gifts that they gift each other, the way they decorate their home, I'm like taking it all in. It's like even this experience, like I'm taking it in. Like I'm like, oh, the tattoos, okay, I see you, the jeans. I'm like I absorb like a lot of things, so I love that part of my job. Even with kids that communicate certain ways. I noticed that in my art, we all have our own language. And sometimes we try to change it so that like, okay, everybody can understand it. But what I noticed with one of my clients is like, his language is his language. And why not do that for myself? Like, it's a lot, but
that makes sense. Cause like, I mean, from what I could tell, you observe pretty much everything. And as a therapist, your job is to observe that person and, get information to then assess it properly to give them the solutions that they need, right? Or to give them the prescriptions, basically. So like, it makes a lot of sense that the way you go about things is you just observe and you take in what you feel like you need, the necessary information, and then you kind of regurgitate that into the world in any kind of way, whether it's art or whether it's in your work. And it makes sense that you would like be that way just because of the way it seems like you found art was like you just observed something and you're like, this is cool. Yeah. Like, what can I do with this? And then it kind of just like built from there. So that's really fascinating. I mean, what is it about? Because I don't think I've ever met a therapist before, genuinely, except for in therapy. Like it's an interesting, like, I guess, I don't know. It must be funny. You must get some funny questions sometimes when you tell people you're a therapist. Like,
yeah, a lot of people, like I had a conversation the other day about somebody was like, oh, you should go to therapy. And I told them, I don't want to go to therapy, but I explained why. And they were like, oh, I never looked at it like that. But yeah, because therapy for me, if I go and like I open up my soul to you, I want to be able to like, count on you. But I work with therapists, and I know like I've been doing this 5 years. Some people treat it just like a job. Like I'm coming to work, I'm clocking in. So I don't want to open up my like everything to you, and I know you just clocking in. And that kind of holds me back sometimes when it's like going to seek therapy for myself.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, are you just getting your hours, or are you?
It's really interesting.
Yeah.
And I'm sure when I think about it too, I'm sure there are people that like that. That go to therapy because they know they're talking to somebody who's just clocking in. Like, I feel like that might alleviate pressure for some people, but I can see how it's like, no, I want you to actually care.
No, because we about to build a real bond.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. So would you consider like, where do you seek that kind of relief? Because some people say, because I don't personally, I tried therapy once. I don't think in the moment, I don't think I needed it. So I was like, I'm okay. Like I can just talk to myself or like talk to my partner, and like I can kind of get to where I need to get. Where do you get what you need? Because some people say you need therapy just to have that conversation, to like introspect better, right? That's kind of the point in a way. Where do you get that from? Is it from yourself? Do you like have friends that you?
I do have friends, but I would honestly say like I don't. And I know that's like real toxic, and it's like a stigma to like men, especially like Black men. Because like when you know what your parents deal with or your siblings deal with, and I'm the oldest, it takes just you gotta have like a lot of strength and like resilience. And when I say I don't, I would just say like, I don't know. It's almost like you swallow it and you just keep it pushing.
Interesting.
And that's just being like totally honest.
Yeah, no, I mean, you're being real. Yeah. Most people would expect like, no, like I'm a therapist. I go to therapy. I care about it a lot. Like, I process my feelings properly in other ways. Yeah. That's interesting. I guess like, everybody has their thing that they're working on, or the way that they are. So, I mean, do you ever feel like that prevents you from doing the work properly, or does it make it easier? Like, what's that feeling like?
I think it makes the art better. Because like I can transfer that emotion and feelings into my art. And right now I would say it's making more sense for like the art that I make and like what I'm like interested in. And like being able to put that into words. So I do find relief there. But in terms of just like talking it out with somebody, that's not like.
It's interesting. I mean, I guess art is your therapist in a way.
Yeah.
What's your to talk about your art a little bit more? What's your style? What would you consider it to be?
So I would call it assemblage. But like the bigger umbrella term is sculpture. So sculpture work. But then like specifically assemblage. And so what that means is like I'm using a hot glue gun and I'm just piecing things together versus like actually sculpting it out with my hands or carving something. So I would say assemblage.
So you take like random pieces you just take anything and put them together to create something, right? Yeah. That's super interesting. How do you go about sourcing materials?
Everything is up for grabs. No, literally like, my mom, she sends me jewelry probably like once a month, big boxes. She collects jewelry.
Oh, that's cool.
She'll send me that. I've been to probably like every thrift store in New York. Like I'll designate like 3 days, and like I have like a really big budget, and it's like whatever I see, I get.
Wow.
Personal life. So like clothes, watches. My dad sent me a watch in the mail, and I wore it for like 2 days, and I just cut it up and put it on.
That's crazy.
So yeah, I learned this thing about art where you don't want to compromise because of like a price or like an attachment. If you really feel like genuinely like this can elevate my work, it has to go into the work.
I would have such a hard time with that, because there's so many things that I find attachment to, and to the idea of putting it on a sculpture to live on that forever and to never use it in that capacity again. It sounds scary. I don't know. It just sounds like, oh my gosh, I'm never gonna be able to, like, cutting up a watch is like, oh dude, especially if I love the watch. I'm like, fuck, like, I don't know. That's wild to me.
Yeah, for me that makes it even better when you love it.
Yeah. Do you have like a favorite item that you've ever put in a sculpture? I know that's a lot, but
no, that's a great question. My favorite item is belts, leather belts. That's like the number one thing I look for.
Yeah.
Studs on the belt, carvings, the belt buckle itself. And this can be like a woman's belt. It does not matter.
Yeah. I
will literally go to like where it's like only women's clothing, and I'm gonna take all the belts. So just like belts are my.
Yeah. What is it about? What is it about belts?
First the leather, the pattern.
Yeah.
And then you can cut it up and use it in multiple ways.
Yeah.
And then the buckle is always like, it can tell its own story. You know, it's almost like a little plaque.
Oh, that's so interesting. Wow, I love that. I didn't expect belts.
Yeah. I'm always checking people's belts out.
Yeah.
Like, you might have on a belt and I'm just looking like, oh, wow, I would just love to have that belt, yo. Like, yeah.
I would just love to hear that conversation. Like, yo, how much for the belt?
No, I've had conversations like that. Because once I see something, it's like, I have to at least try to get it.
Yeah. Oh, that's so interesting. That's pretty cool, though. I love that. It must be like your relationship with objects probably gets pretty interesting after a while of like doing that kind of stuff. Because you put anything.
Yeah,
like I see there's like a broom in one of your recent pieces, right?
Yeah, I was making art for my last show. I had it was like 2 days before, and I'm literally in my closet pulling out drawstrings from like hoodies, sweatpants. Like, it doesn't matter. Yeah, it's like
That's so interesting. Do you have like clothes that you don't touch? Like, you're like, these are my clothes that I would never put in there, and this is like. Or is it all just like, man, I'm going to use this?
Nah, it gotta go.
It's just,
it gotta go, yeah.
That's funny. You create your art through a style alongside assemblage. I think it's called Afrofuturism, right? It's a tough word. I just learned about it recently, actually. Somebody came to, there was like this event that happened where she was like, showing how her work in Procreate and how it's Afrofuturism work. What is that exactly for people that might not know? I'm assuming a lot of people don't actually. It's a pretty relatively new form of art.
Yeah, so it's like looking in through the lens of science fiction and being able to like, okay, time travel to the past, to the future, and you bringing both of them together. And it can just also be future context or like past, but it's just like not being able to put like a timeline on the work. Yeah. And then a lot of people, and for me, when I use Afrofuturism, it's allowing my work to like travel between those realms. So like this could relate back to the past, or this could be in the future. Yeah. And that's like the whole context of it. Afrofuturism was adopted and like created, I believe even in the 2000s. That
really?
Like,
wow.
How early. But a lot of Black people don't have space in like science fiction. Yeah. And like even growing up, it's like you don't really get into it. It's not something that's like relevant.
Interesting. And so this is kind of like the space that was created for people of color that to look at sci-fi essentially
and include ourselves.
Yeah.
Especially being like active creators of our own future. That's like a big emphasis. So instead of allowing like the world social to guide you and say like this is who you are and who you should be, it's like taking that power back and saying like, no, this is what the future is going to look like for us.
It's so interesting. How does your art, how does it play into that with because you're basically taking like, with yours, it must be slightly challenging because you're taking pieces that exist in this current world and trying to show or present some kind of like futuristic telling or sci-fi telling of like your experience. So like, what is that challenge? Like, what does it usually look like?
It's interesting. Like even talking about it, it does sound challenging. But it does flow very natural through me. Yeah. I would say something as simple as like spoons. Yeah. And like turning them into shades. Yeah. And it's just stuff like that where like it is what's around in my environment and how can I like what can this like turn into? Almost like thinking of it like Star Wars, in a sense, how they have a lot of items that I could relate to in like present day, but the functionality in Star Wars is something like totally different,
way off.
Yeah,
that makes sense. That's really cool. Wow, that's fascinating. I feel like I could think about that all day, and you could probably turn anything into anything if you have that kind of perspective, right? That's cool. What's your favorite piece that you've ever done that fits within that mold?
My favorite piece that fits in that mold is called My Forefathers Were Rock Stars, but I Bring That Punk Shit. And
I feel like I remember that one.
It's my favorite because one of the legs is a guitar.
That's sick.
And then one of the arms is constructed out of water guns. And then it kind of extends down into a full arm. And I think that is my favorite because it's like, okay, obviously a guitar leg. Like, and it's like now he's walking on that. And I think that's just like an example of like where Afrofuturism can go. It's like really no rules. It's like, just build it. Can it stand up? Is it functional? Like, all right, let's go now. Yeah.
That's actually sick. Your exhibitions, they've centered around a lot of themes: brutality, beauty of humanity, and then complexities about being a Black man. So how do you think these themes will change the narrative on how people of color connect with their like roots? And because Afrofuturism has to do with like the past and then bringing it into the future. How do you think that shapes their connection with that? And how, maybe even personally, what has it done for you in terms of that?
Yeah. So for people to connect, when they connect, they can draw from a lot of references from their home. So being in New York, a lot of people from the Caribbean, and they tell me stories about parades, carnivals, that they experienced as children, and to run into it now and to be able to connect with it and open up new possibilities. I'm really happy to hear that, because now I got you thinking on the will that I want to like push forward. And for me, it's helped me find myself more and understand why I do what I do. And everything within Afrofuturism, within like the last month, it's found a new meaning, which is a lot of my masquerade. It has this aggressive tone. It has this like, some people like, wow, that kind of looks scary. Like, why is it just, and what I found in that reflection is that my masquerade is a form of protection and defense from like my own trauma responses and what I consume from like the mass media of Black people continuing to be terrorized. And so my influences are always drawn from the Mardi Gras Indians, the Buffalo Soldiers, Harlem Hellfighters, the Tennessee Rifles, and all of these groups are Black militant groups where they excel exceptionally, and they also did not fear, and they had courage to bear arms against oppression. And so that form of protection I transferred into my work. And Afrofuture, I don't know I'm going like,
no, please keep going.
Afrofuturism plays that role because I can go back to say, okay, what's the best parts of the Buffalo Soldiers, the Tennessee Rifles, okay, Harlem Hellfighters, and bring them all into one. And now that's like a form of protection for Black bodies. Like now it can go in the past and it can travel to the future. And so that's how everything has unraveled for me, and finding like that meaning. Yeah, I know that was a lot.
No, that's great. Yeah. It makes total sense. And it's fascinating to learn about those like militant groups as well. Those aren't stories that are told like ever. You know, you never really hear about those kinds of people and those ways to protect, like what they had to do to protect themselves, essentially. And it's really fascinating. And I'm sure you relate to that experience a lot as well. Just like you said, being a Black man and having to protect yourself pretty often. Like I'm assuming like, like most of the experiences that I've heard of or that I've seen or even experienced myself, it's like being a man and then having to deal with the struggles of that growing up. And like you said earlier, we talked about like how in our conversation about therapy, is like you don't really talk about that, and that's probably why you don't hear about those groups, because they're not out here talking about how they're protecting themselves, or like you're not opening themselves up to that kind of like or they're not opening up about their experiences because it's difficult. There's a lot of, like you said, trauma behind that. And the idea of bringing that into your art and using that to almost protect yourself is like, it's really fascinating. It's really interesting. And I think there's a lot that can be said about that specifically. So, I mean, I appreciate you sharing. That's pretty cool. What are your roots? Like, what are your actual roots that you have? Yeah.
So, like where I'm from.
And basically.
I'm from Hampton, Virginia. I wasn't exposed to art. My dad, though, he works on a naval base.
Yeah.
And my grandpa was in World War II.
Oh wow.
And so that's the only like military like connection. Besides that, like I was never exposed to art. I never went to a gallery. Self-expression was really limited.
Yeah.
You can't really be yourself in the South. That's why I love it up here.
Yeah.
Like I love it so much.
Yeah,
but
I feel that.
Yeah. It's really weird that like I do this now and where I come from, because you would be like, where did this come from?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Same. No, I relate to that. I feel the same exact way. I grew up in Florida. And I grew up in the church, and parents were pastors, and like I was a very shy kid. Like I never really talked at all, or like did anything, or expressed any kind of emotion. I never really did any of that stuff. And all of a sudden I was like singing and dancing on stage, and everybody's like, who's why? Where did that come from? And I was like, I don't know. Like, it just kind of felt natural. It was like something that I found, like you said, with your materials. It's something that you found, and I was like, this is actually kind of fun.
Yeah.
And I feel like I can do this pretty well. So like, you know, I'm gonna just keep doing it.
Yeah. It's funny, because I grew up in the church as well.
Yeah.
And it seems just like growing up in the church almost limits a part of like self-expression.
Yeah, yeah.
And I don't know if it's because we don't see it from like our parents, because like they're the biggest example. And it just makes you feel uncomfortable when you don't see anybody like genuinely expressing something that's like out of the norm. It makes it like ask you, is this okay if I do this?
Yeah. Because you've never seen that before on your own. And I'm sure like it's interesting, because I'm sure there are some ways that you could have expressed yourself that people would have appreciated, but like how would you ever know if you never saw it? Right. Especially within your parents, or like the people around you, your friends and stuff like that. I think the only place that I was able to express myself back then was like just playing sports. I'm sure you felt this way too.
Yeah,
but like
I had to play sports.
Like that's all I could do. Like any excitement, joy, sadness, anger, like aggression, all of those feelings you feel within like the idea of a game. And like that was where it all happened.
Right.
So I feel the most connection to that nowadays. But like, you know, now that we've grown up, we're able to express ourselves in different ways, and like, you know, learn from people around us that there's more to life than just that. But
Amen.
But yeah, throughout your creative journey, how has being able to creatively express yourself, how has that impacted your life and the way you process things? Has it like changed a lot about you, or?
Yes, in every way. Finding space to heal. Finding like creating things that like I feel I need for myself and for others. An example is like my next project that I'm working on is a compass / dream catcher. And I wanted to be like 6 feet by like 6 feet, like really big. Damn. And this tool is like for the recent challenges that I've had and that I know my family struggle with, and like other Black people. Like, you know, I say don't talk, or we struggle with finding our way, or like a lot of things that, you may take for granted may not be passed down to certain people.
Yeah.
And so I want to create a tool, and this is how like things have changed, where I want to create a tool to help navigate us. And so that's how my art is like serving me now. It's like I'm looking at my own life and what others around me. Yeah. And I'm like, how can I help? Yeah. And it's like, okay, now I can create something to help guide us and like help us find our way.
So it's really cool to think of it as a tool as well. Like that's such a fascinating way to think about your art and what it does for you. Yeah, I'm excited to see that. If you started work on that already, or you just kind of like...
No, I already see it in my head. I've seen it for a while.
Yeah,
I haven't started on it. So like, well, my schedule and everything. Yeah. Once I get in the studio, it won't take long. Only because it's just like, and I'm sure you're the same way. Say you want to do something, you're seasoned enough to be like, boom, boom, boom. Like let me lay this down. And I know the hard part. Or I need like an hour or two.
Yeah.
So that's more like the process now.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I mean, what is it? Because we talked a little bit about, like what your schedule is like and how much you got to do to keep up and stuff like that. But in your opinion, with the way that you've experienced art and your career and everything that you're doing, what does it actually take to be where you're at, to do what you're doing?
I would just say like, and I don't know, it may be like sound cool, but it's not really cool. But like almost just like this madman mentality. Like I've been sick twice in February, which is not good, but it's like extreme burnout. Yeah. I slept like 3 hours for 3 days. Just like traveling, trying to handle art. I had finals as well. Jeez. I'm trying to finish like last minute things for work. Yeah. But it just takes this like, no matter what, I have to get this done. Yeah. And at a certain level. So almost just like nothing else matters. Like, let's go.
Yeah. That's why. I mean, that's like you said, it sounds cool, but it's like you don't really know until you're in it, and how you don't understand how challenging it is, and how it's like does not feel fun when you're doing it. Yeah. It might look fun. And I guess that's kind of like the allure of being an artist, is that it looks really fun, right? Especially with traveling and getting to do art in general. Like all of that is really fun. It's really cool. But like you said earlier, it doesn't pay the bills at all. So you have to do that. You have to be really good at it. And then you have to also pay your bills off of something else. Yeah. Like it doesn't, it's like, God, it's very stressful. And burnout happens. Yeah. When you just get like out of nowhere, you're like, I finally got to sleep, but I can't sleep. And then I try to wake up and I can't get out of I can't get out of bed, Yeah. So I definitely feel that. I mean, I don't know if I think about it a little bit, I don't know if I've ever gotten to that point where I'm getting so, like, it's so bad that I'm like getting sick off of just stress. Yeah. But
don't ever go.
Yeah. I don't know if I ever want to get to that point.
Yeah. I don't regret it, but I've learned I will never, like go into these deep waters again. It's just not healthy for like your body. Yeah. Like your spirit, relationships with others. Yeah. It's just,
what is it? What do you do? Is it just about saying no to certain people and certain things?
Yeah, but I can say no, but like my phone is ringing. Like my great aunt, she got like upset with me. Like, I haven't heard from you. I go see her like every 2 weeks. Oh, wow. And I can't. Yeah. And so that's just like one example of like I'm letting people down that's like counting on me, but I'm so drowned. Like, and I'll tell you I'm busy. Yeah. And you're just like, all right, I'll talk to you in like 3 days. I'm just like, no, in 3 days, I have like 3 more things to do. So yeah, it is. I would not recommend that for anyone to take on like too much at one time.
Yeah. What has been your favorite exhibit to do?
So recently, I did my first installation at Jenkins & Johnson, which is still up until April 11th. And I would say it's my favorite because I was pushed and like I was uncomfortable. And it's been a while since like someone made me uncomfortable. Like they asked me to show up in a way where like I just never done that before. And so I had to to like do the fireplace, and create something for that. And I would say that's just my favorite because of like being pushed.
Yeah. What about it made you uncomfortable?
So initially I was supposed to create an altar, and
interesting. Okay.
I just feel like in my religious practice and like where I'm at, I am not comfortable with making an altar. I don't really know what I will, because like when I take that serious.
Yeah, for sure, of course.
Like I don't know what I worship for real, like to give it to you as an art.
Yeah.
And so I had to like think of something new and also feel it and also show up like and rise to the occasion.
Yeah.
And so I really enjoyed that challenge.
That's super interesting. I guess what's the like, is it purely because of the idea of not knowing what it's going to be used for that you wouldn't create an altar in that situation?
Yeah, because like I don't even know. Sometimes I'm making my art so fast, I don't even know like what it's about. Some of my art is still talking to me now.
For sure.
Yeah, so I don't want to put anything in a way that like I have to look at it and say like I worship this, and I know for sure like it's aesthetics, and I don't want to feed that to people as well, because you can be like inspiration to certain people, and they might take it for like that face value when it's really just you just plopping stuff up there. Yeah. So I don't want to call it an altar if I'm not like ready for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's super interesting. I mean, I think it would be fascinating to see that one day, maybe like once you can feel like it's a place that makes sense, like in terms of your mental relationship with it and also just wherever it is actually. No, yeah, that would be super fascinating. What's your, not to get too deep into this, but mostly because I'm curious, what's your relationship with because you said religious practices, right? Like, do you have a religion that you do practice actively?
Yeah, so I'm a Christian.
Oh, nice. Okay.
And my practice, prayer, reading my word. I try my best to go to church. I honestly haven't been to church.
The other thing you got to do.
Yeah,
I can't imagine. Yeah.
But that's how I was raised.
Interesting.
I have friends that believe in like everything, and I'm very accepting.
Yeah,
and I don't like. I know like the stigma that it comes with, but I always tell people it's like it's a safe space. I'm not judging you, like.
Oh, for sure, no.
But that's like my practice, and it's funny because I do get challenged by a lot of people with making indigenous work and using indigenous practices to make my work, and it's like, but you're a Christian, and Christianity like is the colonialism, and all of that mixed into a bag. So I don't have all the answers.
Yeah, I mean,
I just do. I find what's like I'm comfortable with, and what I've been like doing to get me here and to keep me afloat. So I'm still learning how to even navigate like those questions and like that space.
So I guess the reason why I'm asking too is because I think you're the first person. From what I don't know if anybody's I don't think anybody's ever openly said it on the show. Typically when I have conversations about religion or Christianity, because I grew up Christian as well, I'm no longer Christian, but like typically the conversations I have are people that are post-religion in their lives, and they kind of like dealing with the trauma of that they've had to experience. So I'm happy that you're here, only because I want to ask, like, what does it do for you truly? Like, what is religion in your practice? What does it give to you that you feel is super helpful?
So for me, all I have to do is show up, and then everything else is taken care of. I think my faith has allowed me to overextend where it does not make sense to anybody. I've lived many places. I like jumped off the porch many times where like I don't have the money, I don't have anything, and I show up and like I'm literally about to board a flight, and then like I sell a piece for like $500 and I'm good. Yeah. So my faith has allowed me to just overextend, where in reality a lot of people might say like, do not do that, or like, what are you doing, or this is crazy. But my faith has grounded me, and I'm just able to like walk through these moments and just make it out. Like almost is like going to school right now and doing art as well.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm not supposed to be passing school, but I'm passing school. Yeah.
God, it's super interesting because like I said before, like I have a lot of conversations about this, and most of it is just, you know, we don't talk about that in the best light always. But I think it's really fascinating, and it's nice to hear that you use it in a way that betters you and that serves your purpose and what you want to do with life, and gives you confidence to, like you said, to overextend in some ways. Because oftentimes I do feel like as artists, all it does take sometimes is to overextend into a place that you might not feel comfortable, and having the confidence to make it out of there. And I think that whether it's confidence from that you feel is from within, or confidence that you feel like is given to you by God, or whatever you kind of practice, like either way, it works for you, and it gives you something to lean on when you're not having like the best time, you know. And I feel like that's missing from our society in a lot of cases. Like in the circles that we run in, like how many people do you know that are actually Christian?
So in my artist circle, nobody. But like through life, I have like obviously friends.
For sure.
So I got like probably like 5 guy friends I'll talk to every day. And 2 of them are Christian, and then the other 3 will actually challenge that. Yeah.
So, and that's the thing that I was gonna say is like, how many artists do you find, especially in New York, which that's such a like a lot of people are like pretty secular in New York, and progressive. So I think that it must be really interesting and challenging to be that, you know, and to kind of walk with that in a lot of your circles. And I listen, like I think a lot of what's missing a lot in our generation is like that organized practice where everybody's like thinking about the same things and kind of like having a foundation in morality. I think that we've gotten a little like silly with a lot of our lifestyles just because of how morality has not taken like a back seat, and there's no like foundation for a lot of people. So I fully support you in what you do. And I'm glad you're open as well. I think that's the most important thing, because just the same way that I'm not going to judge you for being for following what you follow, you know, I appreciate that you don't judge anybody else for doing the same.
Yeah, I can't. And like I say, they challenge me all the time. Like nobody's ever felt like I feel like they felt uncomfortable. It's more so like, no, I'm about to ask you these questions.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, okay, let's see what you got.
Right.
That's funny. But anyway, you know, I just wanted to briefly talk about that just because I thought it was interesting, especially reading your Instagram bio. I was like, oh, he's like actually Christian. That's cool. But yeah, I guess towards like the, you know, one of the last things that we're going to chat about for this, you had an exhibition in Nigeria, was it, right? The international exhibition. How long ago was that at this point? It was last year, right?
Yeah, this was like last year in the fall.
Okay, cool. What was that experience like, especially taking the way that like your art and what you do, taking it out there?
It was a great moment almost, but I feel like I learned so much like about Nigeria, the specific location, because I was like literally about to fly out there. Yeah. And people telling me, like giving me advice and giving me tips and like things to do, things not to do. And it was just like unfolding a part of life where like you never have to look over there, and now you are. And so it's just like, oh, this is not the same, like, because you're like, one of my coworkers was like, make sure you're really somewhere nice because like you may not have water or electricity at certain times. Okay. And then not a language barrier, but I was like the only American in the show. Oh, really? And so like when you read the list of artists, it was like all of these names where you can like tell where they're from. And it was like Mark. And I was just like, oh man, like they're probably looking at me like, look at him, you know? Yeah. And Mark Wilson Jr. We had a group Zoom call that I didn't even get on. I was nervous because I was just like, I just felt like the outcast, and I didn't want to like, I was honestly nervous. So, but I think that's good. Yeah, for sure. I think that was like a really good experience for. Yeah. And
you were going to a space where you were going to be like, you didn't know what to expect, and that's like a challenging experience for sure. Well, that's really cool. I wanted to ask about that because it seemed like a pretty interesting experience. It seemed pretty fun. So Also to congratulate you. That's pretty cool.
Thank
International you. Doing things overseas is like a big deal, I feel like. Not many people get the opportunity, especially artists in New York don't really get the opportunity to go somewhere else with it.
Mm-hmm.
Even within the States, like it's very rare that you get invited to do something somewhere else.
Right.
Because your circle of influence is only so large.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's impressive that you've gotten to do something like that. To share it somewhere else. Also, it's talking about like Afrofuturism and stuff like that. It's like, you know, must have been really fascinating. Yeah, I mean, thank you for being here and sharing and stuff like that. I really do appreciate it. And it's a pleasure to meet you as well.
It's been great.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. To end us off, to end the podcast, what I would like from you is, one, tell us how we can support you. And then the last thing is if you have any words of wisdom to leave us off with to end off the show.
Yeah. Honestly, like what's coming to mind when you like said to support me,
Mm-hmm.
I'd rather just people take care of themselves.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
No, for real.
Yeah.
Like I'm good. Support is great.
I mean, yeah, of course,
but I just want people to take care of themselves. Like a lot of this, I feel like we get caught up in it and it's not that deep.
Yeah.
Be there for like the people you love and care for and like take care of yourself. And then the words of wisdom.
Yeah. You kind of gave it give us some more.
Yeah. I would say the words of wisdom is if you have a vision or you have something you're going after, like don't give up or don't stop. And you can't expect anything from anyone or anything. And if that's like your reason of doing it, you're gonna burn out and you can crash.
Yeah.
So I would just say like whatever's like truly in your heart, go after it and don't slow down.
For sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure everybody appreciates that immensely, and I'm sure people needed to hear that as well. Yeah. So thank you.
Thank you.
To everybody watching, thank you so much for watching and being here with us. Thank you for making it to the end of the episode. We really do appreciate it, and I'm sure Mark does as well. Thank you for listening. If you want to support, all of the information in the bio, of course. You can follow them on Instagram and also check out his work. And if you feel like you connect to it, share that. Just the way you share with him, share with us as well if you appreciated the episode, if you like it. And yeah, thank you again for watching, and thank you for being here, Mark. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Sweet. Dope.
All right.